Let's talk to Professor Emeritus at Harvard Law School, and he's the author, of course, of the book, The Preventive State, Alan Dershowitz. He's with us now. So, Professor, what do you make of this meeting between these two? I mean, Bibi comes all the way across. They meet for quite a while, obviously very cordial. They seem on the same page. Is there something special, though, about the timing of this meeting between them?
Yeah, I recently spoke both to President Trump and to Prime Minister Netanyahu. They're both friends I speak to from time to time. And this was the strongest meeting between them. Of all the 6 meetings they've had, this is the one in which both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu showed what happens when Israel and the United States work together. Now, the rest of the world is moving away from Israel, but Trump is moving closer and closer to Israel. And I think he sent a very powerful message to Iran that they better not be developing the capability of sending rockets to Israeli civilian cities and developing more nuclear weapons, because if that happens, there are going to be more B-2s. But, Israel doesn't even need American support. All Israel needs is a green light from Donald Trump to go in on its own and destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. Look, in the end, and this didn't come up today, but there'll never be peace in the Middle East unless there's regime change in Iran. The current Iranian regime is the major barrier to peace in the Middle East. And if President Trump wants to be known as the peace president, he has to be in support of regime change. And then there can be deals with Saudi Arabia and all the other deals. But this was an extraordinarily successful meeting between the president and the prime minister, and between the United States and Israel. And I think it bodes very, very well for the future of the relationship.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of good stuff came out of this. And maybe what Trump was saying when I don't even want to waste the gas on a B-52 bomber was exactly what you were alluding to, that he's just going to give Israel the go-ahead to do what they need to do. Maybe that's kind of what he was hinting at. Also, part of this peace deal is the Board of Peace, as it's being called. It would oversee the reconstruction in Gaza. Trump obviously says he would love to lead the board. He's the master builder there. How do you see this process playing out? And who else might be on this board?
Well, we know that the former Prime Minister of England was supposed to be on the board, and now he was apparently vetoed by Hamas. So we're going to see some vetoes, and we're going to see some exchanges. But I think we'll see some American leaders. I think we'll see some leaders from European countries, probably not from England. England has kind of disqualified itself. I don't think any country that foolishly recognized a Palestinian state where there is no state, and without even demanding that they recognize Israel, I think every one of those countries is disqualified. So is Turkey disqualified. So it's going to be interesting whether they can get a half a dozen people or a dozen people to serve on a board of peace. I don't think it's going to be easy, because so many countries have disqualified themselves by their foolish and negative recognition of a fake Palestinian state.
But hopefully the UN will have nothing to do with the reconstruction of Gaza.
With it, it's doomed to failure. The UN can have nothing to do with it. The UN is now a major source of conflict rather than a source for peace. I'd like to see the United States and Israel get out of the UN eventually, unless the UN changes its policies. And maybe they will change some of its policies. But right now, they are a negative force in the world.
So apparently there's no plan for a Palestinian state, but the Gaza peace agreement would have the Palestinian Authority kind of take over at the end of 2027. In your mind, what does Palestinian leadership, if you can call it that, actually look like?
Well, there are all kind of rumors about this guy Barghouti, who's in prison. Maybe he'll get out and become the great hope, the great leader. Look, Palestinians haven't earned themselves a state. They have to earn a state the way the Jewish people earned the state over hundreds of years of state building. And you can't just create a state out of nothing. Maybe someday there'll be a Palestinian state, but it can be a state without terrorists, without Hamas, and without the current Palestinian leadership. So I think it's a possible dream for the future, but it's not a reality in my lifetime.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, always good to have you on. Hope you have a great new year.
You too. Thank you. And thanks to your viewers. Have a good year.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.